Warning,
Good.
the Catholic Man Show contains high levels of manliness. It's simple, really. You either want to grow in virtue and holiness, or you want to be a sissy, whiny baby. If you choose to move forward, grab your whiskey glass, because the Catholic Man Show is starting right now.
Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We're on the Lord's team, the winning side. So raise your glass. You should raise a glass because we are on the winning side.
It's nothing.
Assuming that you are in the state of grace and not in mortal sin.
And not driving.
Yeah.
You could raise a glass.
There's a lot of
like,
assumptions
of
being made
or
here.
Something.
But if you are in the state of, if you are in mortal sin, then you should just go to confession quickly.
Just stop what you're doing right now
and
just
go to confession.
Because that's way better than whatever else you are doing.
Especially listening to us.
Yeah. You should go to confession and then come back.
Yeah, and then raise a glass with us.
We'll save this episode
because then
for
you would be on the winning side.
Right.
I'm Adam Minahan here with David Niles, Juan on the buttons, Jim on the door duty, making sure that no one is breaking in.
We're like the Knights of Columbus over here. You know, they have somebody guard the door and stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay, I was wondering where you were going with that. There's a lot. It's I'm not passing out Tootsie Rolls or making pancakes right now, so I'm not really sure.
You know what?
But
either of those sound pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah. Hey, we just got back from the camp out from last week. We got back last weekend,
awesome.
But it was such a great camp out. The weather was perfect. All the activities that we had scheduled went
the throwing
really
axes,
well.
big hit.
I mean, I got to tell you that they said it couldn't be done. They said that Father Cosgrove and I couldn't win the cornhole tournament, but yet here we are.
I think they said that because they thought that you guys were going to play me.
No. I was just they couldn't figure out.
I will also have
Father
it be
Cosgrove
said
and we dominated.
that I won every single game that I played the entire weekend.
Yeah, you beat me in chess.
I think I won 7 or 8 games of chess.
Yeah, you beat me in chess, and I was up on you.
Yeah,
which was tough.
Mm-hmm.
That was a tough pill to swallow because I was feeling pretty confident, and then all of a sudden,
yeah, there was a moment there where I felt bad.
Yeah, you weren't.
But then
tides turned.
It turned. Yeah, they did
quickly. The daggum fork. You get a guy in a fork.
I know, man.
It changes the game.
The knights.
Those knights, they're tricky.
They don't move in a linear. They're not linear, and so
it's hard.
You don't see them coming
sometimes,
and they jump over people.
Just when you think they're in the east, they're in the west.
Right.
It's frustrating. So we are going to drink a little bit of Johnny Walker 18. We're going to do a blended whiskey. We haven't done a blended whiskey in a long time.
Dude, think about this. I thought about this week. This century is almost old enough to drink. Here in 2 months, the 21st century will be of drinking age.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, isn't that wild?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I've actually thought about that too before.
That is so weird. When I was talking to somebody and oh, well, yeah, they were working with college kids and well, yeah, but they were born in this century. And I was like, what? They're in college?
When did that happen?
They were born in 2000. And I was like, what year is it? Yeah. They'd be 20 years old.
I blinked all of a sudden. Ah! Yeah. So we're drinking the Johnny Walker 18 year. It's in commemoration. I think they brought it out for their 200-year anniversary of their distillery. And it's going to be interesting because this 18 year is up to 18 different distilleries.
Yeah, that's what it says. Do they not know? It says up to 18 unique Scotch whiskeys blended to create a whiskey.
I think they know. It's just it depends on maybe what barrel. I don't know.
But the fact that they would say up to 18 instead of.
But they're all 18-year whiskeys that they're blended together. So that makes me think that it's going to be a complex whiskey. Just because if you're think about how hard it would be to blend 18 different whiskeys together and it still tastes good.
I agree.
I mean, that is a craft. I mean, that would be very, very difficult to do, in my opinion. I mean, I have not played the game of blending whiskeys myself because I've read online, everybody just says, don't do it. You're going to ruin all the whiskeys.
Right.
Like, you're just going to ruin the whiskeys that you have.
Yeah.
So don't do that.
Right.
And so
There is I'm sorry, one. There is something that like I've heard people do where they take, they'll take a decanter, and when there's like a third of it left, that's when they add a new bottle to it, and so they always keep it going, and
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's not what I would do.
I wouldn't do either.
I wouldn't do that, but
let's try it. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
Cheers to Jesus.
Cheers. Cheers, Juan. Cheers, Jim. So the tasting notes.
This is like the sign of peace that nobody gets to do anymore. Yeah.
I do love the presentation. I'm a sucker for presentations of bottle. That's why I like I think that's why one of the reasons why I like 1792 bourbon is the bottle is very aesthetically pleasing. It looks nice.
It's round.
I like it. And this bottle is just really heavy. If you felt like
it is a heavy bottle, you're right.
It's thick glass, but okay. So and it comes in this nice presentation of a box. It's you can see it goes in there. So the color, it says it's deep amber. The palate,
very little on the nose.
Okay. Oh, the nose says it's rich, sweet fruit aromas with toffee, caramel, vanilla, and a hint of smoke.
I was gonna say butterscotch, but it's probably the toffee.
Okay. The palate, it says it's warming and sweet with dark fruit, multi cereal, smooth, creamy vanilla, fragrant almonds and tangerines, and a gentle smoke developing. The finish, it says it's lingering with a dark chocolate, caramelized citrus peel, and very light smoke.
That is good.
I would hope that it is. Okay, so this bottle.
That is that you're gonna like that.
The bottle is, I believe it's running about the $100 to $115, $120 range. If I remember correctly. I bought this a while back ago, so I can't really recall, but I remember it was at least a bill.
So this is just my own opinion, so it's not really worth that much, but I think there are certain levels of whiskey. There's like whiskey you can get around the $30 bottle range. Then it kind of jumps up to the $60 range. There of course there's stuff in between, but I'm just speaking like in general. Then there's a lot you can get for around $60, and then kind of the next level is the $100 range. There's not a whole lot that sells for $90 or $80. You kind of go from like 60 to 70, and there's a jump to 100, where there's now all of a sudden there's a lot for sale at 100. It can be tough, like to spend $100 on a bottle of whiskey. Christmas is coming up, like that's maybe why I would do it if I was going to give a gift. Like for your dad or someone who's
like your best friend who does
really
a podcast
awesome
with you.
Yeah,
that would be. There you go. Maybe you should do that.
That's a great idea for
on
someone.
the nose.
If someone were like that.
Yeah. On the nose, there's I do get an orange.
Do you?
Citrus, yeah.
I was just expecting, like when I was smelling it, I thought, do I have my nose in the glass?
The palate is very malty, in my opinion. It has a little bit of raisins. There's a very subtle, like secondary smoke flavor to it.
Yeah, so I think the flavor kind of changes in an unexpected way on the finish. Like it's going in this direction. It kind of like does a barrel roll on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do really like it. In fact, it's much better of a blended Scotch than some that I've tried recently. I do think that the finish, it says it's lingering with dark chocolates, caramelized citrus peel, and very light smoke. I get a little bit of that light smoke. I do get a little bit of the bitter dark chocolate at the end. But that's I don't get the citrus at the end. The citrus, like to me, it hits the palate.
I don't get citrus at the end at all.
The citrus hits the palate and then it vanishes quickly.
But there is a lot of flavors.
It's the guy that comes to the party early and leaves early.
Right.
That's what the citrus is doing.
Okay.
Just get there, take a picture, so that way everybody knows that you made it, and then bail.
Right.
What do you think? So would you?
No, I really like it. You know what? I think this is. I would be happier paying $100 for this. Not 120, but if it was 100, be happier paying $100 for this one than some of the other $100 bottles we've had recently.
It is. I mean, it's 18. You know, if
it
you
is
have
an 18 year, right.
so I mean, it
that
should
makes
be
a
good.
big difference.
It should. You do get okay on the palate. I'm getting a lot more oak as well. It's like at the beginning I was not getting as much oak, and that last little sip I did catch a lot more oak on the palate. The citrus followed by the oakiness.
Yeah.
What did you think, Jim? You like it?
It's yummy.
Yummy.
Jim's notes are yummy. So Juan.
Tough to argue with that. Really.
Juan.
Muy bueno.
Muy bueno is Juan's notes.
Yeah.
We
Are you talking about me or the whiskey?
No, whiskey.
The
No,
whiskey.
the whiskey. He is talking about the whiskey. Okay.
We had a pretty good whiskey selection at the camp out this year.
Yeah.
What's really cool is that everybody who's coming to the camp out now, the first couple years, we supplied all the whiskeys.
We have to tell the story of Jose.
Jose, my man.
We didn't
yeah.
tell the story before when we were there.
Yeah, we didn't do it while we were with Father Bachman. That'll be on the other side of the break. We're about to hit this.
Okay, we have to tell the story.
Yeah,
This is
Jose.
the funniest story.
Yeah. But originally, when we first did the camp out, we brought, I don't know,
Bunch of whiskeys.
10
yeah.
bottles of whiskey, for everybody to sample. We always do, the weekend is only to glorify God, so we're drinking in moderation, of course. We're just sampling it. But now, as people are coming, they're bringing like a bottle to share as well. We didn't ask them to, but they're all wanting to
bring in their favorite as well.
Bring in their favorite to share with everybody. So we had a great lineup of whiskeys at the camp out. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Did you get to try the Lafroig?
Yeah.
The port and wine cask.
Uh-huh.
We have one that we'll do on the show soon. But
Yeah.
you liked it? I didn't try it. I
you
messed
didn't?
up
Okay.
and didn't try it.
That's a big mess up. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. When we get back, we're going to tell the Jose story. We'll be right back. Jose, man, I have thought about him. I can't tell you how many times I've thought about him. And I wish that I would have been able to talk to him more. I didn't get a chance to really talk to him that much.
I talked to him for like almost 2 hours.
And
good.
because I wanted to tell him hey,
In
dude,
English or Spanish?
It's fine.
in Spanish,
Of course,
yeah, naturally. But man, I wish I had a chance to talk to him more.
I think he really enjoyed his experience.
Oh, I mean, it's very clear that
And I told him, hey,
God probably wanted.
It was God's will.
Yeah,
For
that's-
everything that happened to you, it was His will that it happened.
Right.
I mean, it's like you can't when it's that kind of thing that happens. What happened to you? You did what?
And then you vanished again? Oh, okay.
For how many miles?
Have we told you this story yet, Jim?
You didn't even know these people.
Jim, get ready.
I know. I've been not. I knew I could tell by the look on his face he didn't know the story, and so I all of those things I said, Jim, were for you, just to pique your curiosity.
This will be great. Okay. Yeah, let's keep going. Catholic woodworker.
C. .org.
.com.
.com.
.com. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan, Juan Posada, and Jim Spencer guarding the door. Jimmy, bar the door.
Dave, you know what we got to
Isn't
do?
that a song or something?
We haven't done this yet.
What?
Welcome our new audience. We have a new audience.
Yeah.
The Catholic Man Show has been expanded. We are on 2 new radio stations in Texas, in the Wichita Falls market, I believe. And one of them is just a country radio station.
We're on country radio.
We made it. Us and Garth Brooks.
Y'all.
We come from Oklahoma.
We're
and
basically
Blake Shelton.
We're like the same people, kind of.
Basically. But welcome you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time listening to our show, go to thecatholicmanshow.com and you can find out how we structure our show.
Yeah, for those who are new, we do 3 things on every episode. The first thing we've already done, we've opened, reviewed, and we are still enjoying a manly beverage. The second thing we do is we highlight a man gear of some kind, and then we discuss a topic from a Catholic man's perspective.
This week's topic is going to be on Aquinas and his thoughts on how to have a good marriage.
This segment is brought to you by the Catholic Woodworker, CatholicWoodworker.com, for all your Catholic woodworking needs.
Juan, if you'll go to the Bev Cam really quick, we'll show them the altar that is that the Catholic Woodworker does. You can go there and use TCMS, the Catholic Man Show, and you get 10% off all of your purchases. CatholicWoodworker.com. Our buddy Jonathan, supporter of the show.
TCMS, that stands for the Catholic Man Show. Just
Correct.
in case you need
10%
help
off. Okay,
remembering it.
so Dave, I'm going to let you tell the story of Jose from the camp out. And we tell this story only in... We're not making fun of him.
No, we tell it because it's hilarious.
It's a hilarious story. And he was laughing
He
about it.
also thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, so there's this man. And look, I'm going to tell the way that I tell the story is the way I tell it, okay? If I get some of it wrong, that's...
I mean, you don't let facts get in the way of a good story.
Of a good story. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right. And bad choices make good stories.
That's true.
Yeah.
Jose's from
none of this was a bad choice. No,
No.
but that was just another thing about good stories. But so
Jose-
he's from the Chicago area. Okay,
yeah.
so his wife really encouraged him to come on the camp out. You know, he was flying down, coming to the camp out by himself. Oh, he drove. That's
Yeah,
right.
he drove because he was
drove.
going on down to Austin, I believe, afterwards.
Yeah, so it was a long trip. So he was kind of getting in late on Friday,
Right.
Or on Friday anyway.
No.
Yeah, that's good enough.
The
On
way
Friday.
I said, the way I tell the story is the way it's going to get told. This is why I said that, because I knew there was going to be some people in the room who would try to correct me, but it's fine. It's fine. He gets here, okay,
Right.
and he knows he's looking for a group of Catholic men, right?
Mhm.
Well,
At Clear Creek.
there was another group of Catholic men also at Clear Creek this particular weekend. They're called the Crosswalk Group, okay? And every year they carry a cross from Muskogee to
Tahlequah, I think, actually.
Tahlequah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Anyway, from a nearby town, then they carry the cross to the monastery. So it's about 22 miles, okay? And there's 10 or so of them. They each take a turn doing 2-mile.
Carrying this 4x4 cross.
Right.
Wood beam cross.
I mean,
it's heavy.
It's heavy. Okay, and so they'll carry it for 2 miles and then rotate. Well, he gets to the monastery and he's looking for Catholic men, and this other group gets pointed out to him, and so he kind of goes over to him and says, "Hey, I'm here." And they're like, "Great, let's go." And so I don't know if they were leaving their cars at the monastery and then
Right.
driving, back to town and then gonna walk back to where their cars were. I suspect that was what they were doing. So he just, tags along with them, and they're walking, and they're about halfway through this 22-mile trek when Jose looks at him. It's like, "Man, I'm really looking forward to that whiskey tasting." And they all kind of give him a funny look and like, what whiskey tasting? And so he realizes, wait, is this the Catholic Man Show group? And like, no, that's not at all. But they already were like, "Hey, you're doing this with us. You got to do your 2 miles just like the rest of us." And so he did.
Yeah, he did. He shows up. He shows up and he's like, "Hey, I just got done carrying a cross for 2 miles.
here.
I'm exhausted." And so when he came to tell us he went to go back to go get his car. As he went back to go get his car, everybody else was like, "Okay, when he gets here, we're all going to stand up and say we're going to go on our 50-mile trek now."
Right.
So anyway, I felt so bad for him, but he was...
I had a great humor about it all.
Yeah.
The
And
whole
he's a great
story
guy.
was
He's a great
super
dude.
funny.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
It's like, what an adventure. Last time I went to Tulsa, I accidentally carried a cross for 2 miles.
Yeah, but walked a total of like 22
Yeah,
miles.
and then another 20 just following the
Yeah.
the cross.
It's epic.
It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
It was a weird weekend.
And then I followed it up with a whiskey tasting. Anyway, Jose, if you're out there and you're listening, we love you, man. It was great to meet you. I'm so glad you came. Hopefully next year you come as well. You know what to expect, and we're not going to carry a cross. Although that could be fun.
Maybe we could build him one.
Yeah, he carried one for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Do we have a man gear today?
So here's what we're gonna do for the so we're talking about ways to make your marriage better.
Okay.
According to Aquinas, like some of the thoughts that he had on how to make your marriage better and how love, the causes of love, and how that applies to marriage life. And it hit me as I was actually this weekend. I was talking to some friends over at the campfire. It was fun, and we were talking about marriage. And some of them are agnostic, I would say. I don't think atheists, but at least agnostic.
Sure.
And one of the things they told me was, well, I know that you think marriage is a good thing for religious purposes, but I'm not really religious, and so I don't know why marriage is a good thing. And I said, well, why do you not think marriage is a good thing? And you know what? The only thing that they could really come up with is because they didn't have a good example of marriage in their life. Their parents did not set a good example of marriage. Mm-hmm. And so they thought, well, why is marriage a good thing?
Right.
Which, I can sympathize with that. If you don't have a good example, like, why would you want it?
Right.
But it made me think about.
I mean, of course, the marriage is a sacred institution, but it's also a natural institution.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There are plenty of reasons.
Right.
Just naturally speaking, why marriage is beautiful, good, necessary.
Thomas actually, I think Aquinas breaks it down into three main goods, which are rearing of children, having children, being husband and wife, giving yourself to the other, where it's a monogamous relationship,
right?
And then the last one is just sacramentally.
Even if you ignore the monogamy, and you let's just say you have.
It's a self-sacrifice of themselves. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you could. In the Old Testament, there was not monogamy for much of it, but it still was that same. It was still a natural institution that bound the parents of children to their offspring.
Right.
Which is what you need for the cultivating of a
Good
culture, of a society. Right.
So something that Haley and I did a while back ago that I thought was really good. So it's not necessarily a gear necessarily, but it's something that you can do with your wife. And I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are. So I was reading this book.
Is this appropriate for country radio?
Yes.
Okay.
I read this book. It was on the concept of FIRE, which is financial independence, retirement early. And I really liked an aspect of it because it was always gearing towards what is the end. Like, think about what you're doing, and is it what you're striving to end? Like, what is your end goal, and is what you're doing achieving that end goal? Right. And so if you're trying to be financially independent, you need to know, like, what are you spending your money on? Is this thing going to make you happy or not happy? And so one of the exercises they told you to do was sit down with your wife, and you each have your own sheet of paper and write down the top 10 things that make you happy.
Okay.
And so you write down, and they don't all have to be like, they made it sure to say like on a natural level and a supernatural level. So like, don't just, everything is just supernatural, although that would be the highest form of the good. But, something that is carnal pleasures, everything else is good as well. So
right. It might be helpful to say aside from Jesus.
Right. And so what you do is you write down your top 10, and then she writes down her top 10, and then you exchange the top 10s to see like what are the things that bring you the most joy in your life. Mm-hmm. And so what you get a good picture of, like, well, if spending time with my wife, spending time with my kids, getting them to heaven, living a sacramental life, I enjoy a nice scotch, a nice a nice cigar. I enjoy making sure to have good friends for my children. It's important for me to be around other good Catholic men. When you start going down these lists of like, what is your top 10?
Chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah. Then you got to focus like, well, okay, am I using the bandwidth that I have to achieve these ends? Or am I being sidetracked and being less focused on like what I'm supposed to be doing? Anyway, it really cultivates it gives a good opportunity to have meaningful conversation with your wife.
Sure.
And you have an opportunity to understand like, well, what is making you happy? Like, flowers make you happy. Like, that puts you in a good mood. Good. I will start bringing you flowers home. Like,
I did not realize that was top 10 for you.
It's like, it's a $15, fine. I'll go buy flowers every week. And if that's what makes you happy, so anyway, it just is good.
That is good information to know, because
there's
probably a lot of people out there in marriages where if you did that with your wife, she would say, like that one time when you vacuumed, mm-hmm. and it's like, what? all I have to do is vacuum, and you'll just be ecstatic. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll vacuum once a week. That's no big. What does it take? Like 15 minutes?
Right.
You know, like if that's all I got to do is something for 15 minutes, and I have a happy wife.
Well, and you learn their love languages.
Right.
You know, you learn what they want you to do to feel appreciated, to feel loved, to feel service to you as well. So, I think it's very important to figure out ways that aren't weird to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And that was one that was helpful for us. So
nice.
I think it'll piggyback into our topic this evening as well.
Right on.
We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass. Have you ever done that, Jim?
Sorry, I was
No, you weren't listening. Yeah,
social media.
that's okay.
Social mediating.
Yes.
Have you ever done that, Juan?
Yeah.
It's good though. You find out things about your wife, or that you realize like, wow, I can't believe that was something that was very important to you. And she does the same thing. She's like, wow, really? That's what makes you happy? I didn't realize. It's just really good, I think, to have those kind of conversations. And sometimes they're not easy to do. Sometimes, like, if you walk in, kids are screaming, you're like, what makes you happy? Like, that's not the time to do that. You're not going to. She's like, you know what? Take the kids.
Alone time. I like alone time.
Yeah, away from you.
Right.
No, but
Tell you what makes me unhappy. All of you guys.
So
was it Jose's birthday?
Yeah.
It was Jose's birthday.
Man. Anyway, I think that's a good thing to do. I would be interested to see what you and Pamela would write down.
I mean, it would be probably the exact same. Top 10.
There was a lot
word
of
for word.
There were a lot of things that were basically the same things as well for us.
She'd be like, Jesus, and then David, and I would be like Jesus, and I'd be like myself. So it'd really be the same. It'd be the top 10. It'd be identical.
Identical. Her holy list and your
And
selfish
mine's like,
list.
yep, I like those things too.
Yep.
I
pick hers. You
I
know
also
what?
like me.
You like take yours and you just crumble it up and you're like, I'll take hers.
You're right. I am the best.
Oh man. All right. You ready, Juan? Let's just keep rolling.
Is that what we're doing? No wonder why I'm so dizzy.
People be hating.
Been rolling around.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. Sipping on a little bit of Johnny Walker 18 year. A very nice blended scotch. We talked about, on the last segment, writing down 10 things that make you the most happy, have your wife do the same thing, and then read each other's list and see how many of those connect, see how many of those are the same, what is different, learn a little bit more about your wife, because the topic this evening, I keep wanting to say the afternoon like we're in the afternoon, which we hardly ever record in the afternoon.
It is technically afternoon.
Yeah. Is going to be, we're going to talk about marriage, we're going to talk about love. I think obviously we know that love is very misconstrued. We all know the definition of what Aristotle and Aquinas call love, which is
to will the good of the other.
Will the good of the other. Yes, and
I think that's Aquinas' definition. I don't know what Aristotle's definition.
I think he pulled it from.
They're probably very.
Aristotle
similar.
says to love is to wish good to someone.
Okay.
So very similar.
Very similar.
Aquinas also talks about how love involves willing, outside of willing the good for another, it is essentially an act of the will. So Aquinas is talking about how like you have to will to love them, and that's why a lot of times
it's like the intent behind it, not the action itself.
Right. Yes. Because that's why Christ said, to love your enemies, because obviously you're not gonna have the feelings of like love, because feelings, emotions that's good. It's good. I mean, Christ, our Creator, gave us feelings for a reason.
That's why taxes aren't charitable, because you're being forced to do it. You could say like, oh well, I'm giving money to the poor via social programs, but it's not loving because you're not doing it out of your own will. you're essentially doing it at the point of a gun.
Right. But so I think in marriage, I think we all know, like, you know, when you're courting a lady, you know, you have all these feelings, you're excited, like there's the feeling of love is very, very strong.
Right.
And as we all, you know, as most of us know, as you continue in marriage, you know, these feelings come and go. They never completely go away, but they come and go. In fact, Ed Feser talks about in one of his articles. He says, nature puts the feelings in us as an aid to the will of willing the act of love.
Okay.
While they are bound to fade to a significant extent, when they have entirely disappeared or even turned negative, something is wrong. So he says, like,
right.
obviously they're going to diminish at some point, but
Right.
but anytime that they completely disappear or even turn in a negative way, that's no longer you're feeling like that's a vice now that's almost within you.
Yeah, because those feelings always fade. You know,
Right.
with time, not permanently. You know, you know, there is a season.
Well, that's
There's
why
a
they come and
cycle,
go.
a
Right.
cycle to love.
Sure.
Romantic love. You know, when you're engaged. I remember being. In fact, I was just talking to Lady Pamela about this the other day about being engaged and how, like, the ridiculous things we used to do, like stay up till 3 a.m.
Just to talk.
like talking.
Right.
It's just like, you know, the thought of doing, hey babe, you want to just stay up tonight till like
And
3 o'clock
and just talk.
and just talk because we just can't go to bed, you know? And it's like, no, I don't want to do that at all.
Exhausted.
It sounds ridiculous.
Right.
But but having negative feelings is a completely different. You know, it's
Right.
not like those feelings will naturally fade into disgruntled feelings or resentment.
Yeah,
you know?
resentment. Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Or despise.
It's an
yeah,
important
despise.
distinction, right?
Sure, but they do come and go, and so that's why you have to train your will. That's why as men, you know, you wake up in the morning and you make a choice. I'm going to love my wife today.
Right.
You know, that way you start your day off with, this is the decision that I'm making.
Right. Yeah.
You've
there is
talked
a
about
beauty
this
in that.
before. Like, you know, if you get put in a situation and you haven't thought about it, you kind of panic.
Right.
But if you've thought about it in your head, you know, and thought, okay, if I get put in this situation, I already know how I'm going to react.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about it.
I've already decided.
I've already
kind of,
decided
yeah.
this. And that's kind of the same mentality of, like,
Sure.
you wake up and you say, I will love my wife today. Now, however that manifests is on you, but
Right. Because it is hard. Sometimes those moments are hard, and it will be harder than you than you think.
sure. Oh
in
yeah.
the moment.
Yeah. And so that actually leads right into, like, what Aquinas says, like the causes of love. You know, what causes you to love. And the first thing he says is the good, which makes sense, right? Because the transcendentals, like, that's what God is. You know, God, if God is the ultimate good, you're going to love the ultimate good. Like, by nature, I mean, just naturally, you understand, like, you have a creator and you're going to love that creator,
Right. And love is good,
and love is good.
and so you pursue it.
Right. And so he says, now the proper object of love is the good, which is that's what you just said. And that good is the proper cause of love. Right?
Right.
And so the more that you understand, like, okay, if that is the good, that I'm, you know, we talk about even the good, like living the good life. What does the good life mean?
Yeah.
You know, why are you striving for the good? And it's because that's what this life is about, to get you to the next life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Aquinas actually says, like, you know, it talks about how the more virtuous you are, the more lovable you become. So that's why it's so important as men in marriage, the more for us to be striving for the virtuous life, because the more virtue that you have, the more virtuous life that you have, the more lovable you become, because ultimately that is attractive.
Yeah. So I think there's a supernatural element at play here on a natural level, so somewhat.
Well, they're both, actually.
Well, because, you know, you think about, all right, God loves us and we love other people. Is it more important to be loved, or is it more important to love? And I think kind of the thing you want to say is, well, it's more important to love. It's
Right,
more
but
important to
it's
love
not.
it, but it's actually more important to be loved. And so recognize that you are loved, because, you know, you cannot give what you do not have. So if you don't have, if you're not being loved, then you're not going to be even capable of going out and loving others. So
Right.
you have to first recognize that God loves me.
Right.
And that I am lovable, okay? And so on a natural level, it's kind of the same thing that, as you grow in virtue, now you're being, it's possible to be loved more because you're being more lovable, and it's kind of aligning yourself with that concept of recognizing that and pursuing it to a higher degree.
Right. And that's why it's so important to foster these virtues in your household. We've talked about this on other episodes. You can go back and just search on our website, The Catholic Man Show, just type in virtue and there's tons of things that pop up. But to foster these, even the natural virtues of, the cardinal virtues, prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance. So that way you also foster the supernatural virtues, faith, hope, and love. It's important to strive to build up a household, a domestic church that builds up virtue, because the more virtuous you become, the more lovable you become, and thus everybody loves everybody even more.
Yeah.
Within your home.
Because it's a circle.
So the next one he talks about is beauty. He says beauty is a cause of love.
Yeah, that's definitely a cause of love. I think every man gets that at least.
He says, so for since good is what all seek, the notion of good is that which calms the desire, while the notion of beautiful is what calms the desire by being seen or known. So obviously, that's what, there's this restlessness in you, and there's finally you see something and you're like, yes, this satisfies what I'm desiring. I like this. That's why a lot of times, the first your first impression is the most important. The idea of that is what I want. Even Matt Fradd has talked about before, whenever he was discerning the Franciscan friars of renewal, I believe is what it is. He first thought about going there because he loved how they all wore these their attire, the gray, whatever they are, with big beards. He was like, right. I like that. That is something that is attractive to me. And so he that's, even though that's kind of a superficial, not a superficial, but it's a very,
it is superficial.
Yeah, I mean,
it's on the outside.
On the outside,
it's literally superficial. Yeah. So one time I was at I was flying back to Tulsa, and I noticed that there are these 3 CFR brothers in the I think they might be on my plane, and so I was reading maybe Jesus and the Jewish Roots of the Eucharist at the time or something, and so I pulled it out of my backpack and pretended to read it in such a way that they would see me reading it, and it totally worked. And then one of them came over and started talking to me, and then it just so happened I was right in the middle of it was assigned seating, and one of them, I was right in the middle of them. It was 1 on my left and 2 on my right. The whole flight.
Nice.
It was just awesome. And so I asked them, I said, when one is discerning a call to, to your order, does one simultaneously need to discern the beard? And he kind of laughed and said well, yeah. If you don't have a good beard, it doesn't mean that you can't be a brother, but it might be. Right. A reason that you're not called to our order. It was just so funny.
I would never be able to.
It was just so funny.
Be a part of it. But that's why the virtue of decorum plays such a big role, especially in cultivating the desire for love. Because if you're going to a nice fancy dinner party, you dress for the occasion.
Nice and fancy.
Right. And if you're going to the Feast of the Lamb, you dress for the occasion.
Yeah.
And because the virtue of decorum dictates that your outward appearance justifies what your inward disposition is.
Right. Yep.
And so, anyway, it's so important that if beauty is a cause of love, you have to think about, not in vainglory, why am I doing this, but I'm doing it for the other.
Sure.
That's what the whole purpose of wearing a suit to mass is. It's not for yourself.
No.
It's not for you're not doing it for yourself.
You might do it for that reason, but that's a sinful reason to do it.
Right. The same way with marriage, when you don't wear your tux for yourself.
Right.
So anyway, when we get back, we'll jump into the last 2. We'll be right back. Sweet. Man, this episode's flying by.
All the girls are on tonight.
Lady Haley is on, and Lady Pamela,
And me.
Joan.
and
I saw
Lady Joan is as well.
Lady Juan.
Wow, they're all checking, making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Here
I
you are,
guess
John.
that sounded weird. Okay,
Has anyone ever called you John before?
what about Sean John?
Giovanni.
People have called you Giovanni?
No.
No. That would be silly.
It means the same.
Yeah.
Ready?
See? That means yes. Hey, that means yes. What the thing that I said?
What language?
Espanol. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan, Jim Spencer, Juan Posada on the buttons. We're talking about love and its causes. We just finished talking about beauty. So, Her Ladyship and I, we do a Catholic Engaged Encounter retreats here, and one of the things at the beginning is like icebreaker, like tell everybody where you're getting married. What was the first thing that you noticed about your future spouse? Nobody ever says, "I thought she was gorgeous." Everyone is always afraid to say her looks were the first thing I noticed about her, and it's like,
Her
come on,
beauty.
guys, obviously, like that's what it is for all of you.
Right.
I mean, it's like at least all the men. I mean,
Right.
like the women, it probably was like, oh, his smile or his sense of humor. It's like because like, yeah, that dude's he's not beautiful. I mean, none of them are. Not like the women are, you know. So it's just funny. I've always thought that was funny that people are afraid to say, well, the first thing I noticed about her is just how beautiful
How
she
gorgeous she is.
is. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I just always thought that's funny.
Because they're afraid
Because
of being...
it's surely universally true. You know, you saw her. What made you go find out more? It's because you thought she was good looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But because of that, Aquinas leads into the next thing, which is the cause of knowledge. And right here, he
What
quotes,
kind of knowledge?
So he quotes the philosopher here. Read that right there. And
He says that bodily sight is the beginning of sensitive love, and in like manner, the contemplation of spiritual beauty or goodness is the beginning of spiritual love. Yeah.
so it's more about like knowing like who the person is inside, knowing that she is a daughter of God,
Right.
knowing like contemplating the good. So one of the questions that when we were around the campfire the other night, they were asking me like, well, you know, why? They asked me, well, why did you marry Haley? And I did say, well, first of all, her beautiful red hair, and she's shockingly gorgeous. But I also said, you know, some of the characteristics that she has, the virtues that she has, points me towards, like, makes me holier and points me towards God even more. Like, it makes me realize an aspect of God that I wouldn't have been able to realize without her. And knowing
She is good woman. I am good man.
we together,
You are a good man. She's a good woman.
right?
What?
Even in the Italian accent, a kind of Italian accent. I don't know. Was that supposed to be an Italian accent?
I don't know. It's just kind of like that guy.
Sure.
You like, you know, whoever that guy is who would say something like that.
But that goes into, you know, so obviously the outward beauty draws you in, but then you've had that experience before where somebody attracts you and then you get to know them. You're like, oh, well, you're not the person I thought you were going to be.
Right. Or certainly like looking back on it, it's like, wow, I am really glad
That's
that it didn't work out between us, because it turns out you're a little bit crazy.
right. And so that's why it's so important to know more, like, the more you know about your spouse, the more you can love about your spouse, which
Yeah.
is why it's so important to have these meaningful conversations.
Yeah.
Right. That's why it's so important to have these, like, you write down the 10 things that make you the happiest. I'll write down mine, then let's talk about them, kind of thing, because it gives you the opportunity to have real meaningful conversations to where you realize you find out a little bit more about your wife, and that way you can love her more.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's good to do that kind of like on purpose, because otherwise it just has a tendency not to happen. You know,
Oh, no, you have to be
get caught
intentional
up
about it.
You get caught up in the day to day,
Right.
and like,
With
especially
your
once you have kids,
when you have your children,
because it
and
seems
your job is going, crazy, and you're having to.
yeah, and you get to a point where it's like every conversation you have is about the children.
Right.
And that's great. I mean, because you both love the children.
Right.
I mean, the next one you're going to talk about is like things in common or something.
Yeah,
Right.
likeness.
And what greater, more beautiful thing will you ever have in common than your children? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's like those are good conversations, but your
your
children,
first vocation
your
is-
children are not the vocation, right?
Right.
They're the fruit of the vocation. So you need to make sure that you're watering the roots.
Right. Ooh, good one. I like that.
Thank you. Right.
I like
that just
that.
came to me, so that
Yeah.
the fruit can continue to be
continue
good.
growing.
Right.
Yeah, that was good.
High five.
Man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the Catholic Man Show. We'll go ahead and wrap that up.
Going into rally cap mode. Is that what you're doing?
But no, I mean, so that is why it is important to have, like, when's the last time that you had real meaningful conversation with your wife? You need to ask yourself that, like,
Right.
because if you don't, you'll realize, well, it's been, I don't know, 8 months ago, 9 months, a year ago, 10 years ago, you get sucked into the day-to-day life.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to talk to you about the kids to try to get scheduled, to try to, everything is systematic to try to keep our lives going, and you don't ever have to stop and be able to have a real conversation with your wife.
Sure. And as you get older, everybody changes. And so if you don't keep having those conversations, then
Right.
it's harder to change together. You end up going in separate
different
ways, right, yeah.
And like, you wake up, 30, 40 years after you get married and realize, I don't even know this person that I'm, the kids are now gone. I don't even know who this person is anymore.
Right.
Which is not the place you want to be.
No.
If you are in that place, then you go back to what, this goes into the next one actually really well. It goes into like, okay, you start dating your wife again. Mm-hmm. What brought you guys together? Because, and that's what Aquinas talks about. He talks about the likeness is a cause of love. And here's something that I want to talk to you, I want to get your opinion on.
Tell
because
me.
it's very important to have the same foundations, principles with your wife, like to be on the same ground. Because if you're not having the same ideas, the same lifestyle, the same concepts of like what life should be like, will cause for turmoil, right?
Sure.
It's very hard for a Catholic to marry a non-Catholic,
Right.
Because if Catholicism, if religion is very, very important to you and you guys aren't on the same wavelength, that's very tough to do, right? It's one thing to be like, oh, we both like hamburgers and milkshakes.
Right.
There's things that you like, but there's foundations, principles that should be like almost non-negotiables.
Yeah.
To be able to build your foundation, to build your domestic church on. Like, do you agree? Do you think that's accurate?
I do agree. I'm not sure exactly what your question is, but I agree with what you're saying.
Well, my question is like, how important is those foundation principles to build the domestic church on? Like, can you, for instance, what are your thoughts on people marrying other people outside of the denominations, or like, what are your thoughts on?
Well, so Catholics
or
marrying
even, like,
non-Catholics.
political.
Obviously, it can work. I mean, it can. But you're definitely. It's definitely going to be much, much, much harder. And a lot of times it works really just fine in a relationship until kids come along. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, are we going to baptize the kids? And one of them's like, well, I don't believe in infant baptism. And that's never been an issue until you both have your own infants together, And then it's like, well, now which church are the kids going to be raised in? So like a lot of times you might date and get a lot, like really the relationship works fine, just the two of you. But when the third person comes along, all of a sudden these problems that you never had to confront, now you have to work together, and this is where the division, this is the source, this is the area where you're divided, and so it just is so much, much harder.
Also, like, it tends to happen, like, I'm now I'm a professional businessman. I'm starting a new business, and you guys are both on the same page. Well, now all of a sudden the business is starting to take off, and I have to put more time and effort into this business. And if you kind of put so much focus into the business, and you kind of leave your wife with the kids, and it's a secondary cause almost with your wife and kids, there's maybe some resentment, not only for like you not being here, but also like, well, I really don't want you to be successful anymore if this is what it means.
Sure.
So it's again, Dave, you talked about this before, and it's stuck with me many times. You've said like, I just want people to like stop, think about what you're doing. What is the end goal?
Right.
Because I'm working as I'm building a business up to support my family, not to be successful in and of itself, like not to make a bunch of money for myself.
Right.
That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do it to support my family, to make a living for my family.
Yeah, money is not the end.
Right. And this goes.
It's always the means, or it should be the means.
We could even like link that back into even.
But I do get frustrated with people who
Leisure
are
and
just like
everything
going
else.
mindlessly through their life. Like, have you even thought about what you're doing?
Right.
You've been doing this and you do it every day. Have you even? Just stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing.
Right.
Will you engage your brain, please, before you keep going?
But that's easy to do, right? It's easy to get into the systematic. Every single day I get up this time, and I get the routine makes it hard to sometimes stop and think. It's the same way with the prayer life.
I'm the same way. I use routines actually to guard the good decisions, hopefully, that I've made. But hopefully you have made well-informed decisions, and then like going to the gym. Yeah, if I had to like think about it every day, there would be plenty of days where I decide, yeah, you know what? After weighing the issue here, I choose not to go today.
I choose sleep.
Right, because I came up with a lot of really good reasons why I need to sleep in.
Right.
But it's like I don't do that. I intentionally don't do that. It's a habit.
Right.
And I just do it.
Which is why it's so important to develop these habits even with your wife, that these the common ground that you have with her, the things that you guys both enjoy doing together.
Yeah.
You don't stop dating your wife once you get married.
So, but he's saying that likeness or things in common is the source of love. And I mean, that's true not even in marriage, but even just in friendship. I mean, that's what Aristotle says in the Nicomachean, however you say it, in the Ethic, that if there's no common ground, then there's no basis for friendship. So you have to have a shared life, a life in common. And that comes down to things in common. You have to have shared interests or passions or hobbies. Like if you have nothing in common with someone, you're just not going to be friends. Why would you?
Right.
It would be weird. What are you going to talk about?
And I struggle with that, to reconcile like how other people back in the day used to have completely different either religious views, political views, or whatever, and still remained really, really good friends. Like G.K. Chesterton, he was like one way on the political scale and religious scale, and one of his best friends was on the complete opposite side. It's like,
yeah, but that wasn't the basis of their friendship. That's the thing. They had other things in common that was the basis of their friendship.
Okay. Yeah, I would still push back a little bit on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's the cause of love, the cause of, the good, the beauty, the knowledge, and the likeness is what Aquinas says is causes of love. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
And cheers to Jesus.
Yeah, we can keep going. I don't know. Maybe we don't have anybody who has anything, but I thought that was really good as far as like what Aquinas has to say. And we have to give a shout out to, this will go on YouTube as well. We got to give a shout out to Carlo Broussard, because he basically put this together for us.
He did all the work for us.
He did all the legwork.
Man, I love it when people do all the work for us. Do you know that? Have I ever told you that?
I do enjoy, like, I was sitting here reading some of the stuff that he applied to it or sent to us, and I was like, man, I could apply this to the Catholic Man Show.
Oh yeah, I remember that when we were on that retreat. I was like, man, well, there's at least 2 episodes here.
Right.
At least.
Yeah. And if you're a Patreon member, you will be able to get some of his talks, because I haven't uploaded them yet, but we have them recorded, and I plan on at least. I have to go through and edit it because
it's heavy editing.
Yeah, and I just haven't had a chance to do that yet, because there was some talking in between.
The mics didn't pick
up some of the things.
None of the discussion that was taking place.
Right, so I haven't had a chance to do that yet.
Carlo really well, but not
anybody else. Right, and so I haven't had a chance to do that yet. But whenever I will do that at some point and release it to the Patreon members as well.
Right on.
And we got a new post for Patreon with Father Nesbitt, Father Nesbitt, his talk that he gave at Clear Creek. Camp out.
That one was pretty crazy.
It was, because it was talking about mortification
and all the like fasting practices of the olden days, and
he was talking about. It was wild. Jim, it was like it was wild.
Just
'cause-
like crazy stuff. And he started off by like, these are things to be admired and not imitated.
which means like okay, like well, yeah. I mean, what they would do,
Like
but like
people who like walled themselves into a small area in the desert and who would only take bread like twice a year. And
yeah,
so, and it's like,
extreme mortification.
so they would otherwise probably just eat bugs that like they were able to trap that flew over their little bitty wall that they built. You know, like that's how they lived.
it was wild. He talked about all these different. Again,
The
he did.
stylites.
He-
I've always liked the stylites.
Yeah. Here, come back up here and eat me.
Yeah. Just like living on a pole.
Yeah. But yeah, did you know they did that? Like, there were people who like had like just lived on on basically a pillar, and they just lived up there by themselves, and for humiliation purposes.
I know it's like
you're just
when
standing there.
I read the gospel, like if you took me back 2,000 years ago or 1,800 years ago, whenever, and it's like you have the gospel and you read it, and it's like, yeah, I get it, and then someone say like, all right, did you see anywhere in there about living on a pillar? Like, well, I could read it again, but I didn't. No, I didn't get that. But it's just so funny that like the culture and the movement of their
time.
their life, you know, they felt like God wanted them to live on a pillar, and so they did. It was definitely austere.
I mean, again, he said it's to be admired, but not imitated.
Yeah, they offered their lives in a just unique way, you know, in a unique time, in a
Yeah.
unique place.
No doubt. Luke asked me this, was it yesterday or today? I can't remember either one. He said, Dad, when did the Catholic Church start?
Good question.
Because he like every time we would drive by a church, he goes, Dad, is this a Catholic church? And, you know, obviously most of the time it's no. And I'll say no, and he goes,
No,
he'll go,
son, that's an ecclesiastical community.
yeah. And he'll go, where are all the Catholic churches? He's like, he like kind of gives us like sense of disgruntlement. Like I'm like annoyed that this isn't a Catholic church. And
Why are there so many non-Catholic churches?
yeah, and so he goes, Dad, when was a Catholic? You know, when did a Catholic church start? He did that on the way to Holy Mass today. We were talking about this is what happened. We were on the way to the Holy Mass. We were talking about when Jesus established instituted the Eucharist. You know, this is what we're going to do. This is the purpose of like what the Catholic Church is. This is the source and summit of our faith. You know, I was getting all excited. I was like pumped up. I almost swerved into the other lane because I was getting so excited. You know, I was like, hey, calm down, Adam. Like almost head-on collision on the way to Mass. You know, I was getting all pumped, and we're talking about how this is what separates us from everybody else. You know, the source and summit of our faith is the Eucharist.
Except for kind of the Orthodox.
Well, yeah, and I don't.
But we don't have to get into that now.
Right. This will be another conversation for later.
And sort of the Lutherans if you ask them, but not if you ask us.
Right. And then we'll get into
But also, we don't have to get into that right now.
and we won't even get into the SSPX right now. We won't even talk about them yet.
Well, that's kind of different.
That's why I said that's a totally different.
Okay.
I was giving another branch.
Okay. I thought we were just talking about the Eucharist. And, like who holds the Eucharist to be the source and summit of their faith.
That's. Yeah.
But we would agree that the SSPX also hold the Eucharist as the source and summit of their faith.
Yes, but it's a matter of like if it is actually licit or not.
Well,
Anyway.
that's a different discussion.
Exactly. That's.
No, that's not in the same vein as different discussions
I am
of the
literally
things
saying,
that
like-
I was listing.
Okay. Anyway, so he goes like, so when did the Catholic Church start? I was like, boom, good. I'm glad you asked this question, and I was able to talk to him about.
And the answer is...
Ask me tomorrow.
Well, so
No.
what'd you say?
Well, I said, so, when Jesus died, and Jesus died on the cross, and whenever he resurrected, and he was up there, the apostles were up there in the upper room, and they were all scared, and then Jesus came back, and he said, like, go, and he said, go and make disciples of all men, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I said, like, at that point, whenever he said, go and make disciples of men, then that's when all of the apostles, which they know who they don't know all their names, but they know who the apostles are.
sure.
I said, that's when they all went out and they started Catholic churches. Started building Catholic churches.
Okay, see, that's probably not what I would have said, but there are several, I think,
I mean, you could go
several
into
different answers. You know,
Right.
because they say, oh, Pentecost is the birthday of the church.
right,
But I think that the real answer is when Christ was crucified.
right, and then when he got hit in the
Yeah, I mean, well, that's
the
the
spear
that's the consummation of
of
him and his bride.
right.
He is
And
now
that is now
consummating like the church.
Yeah,
in
dude,
that
I'm
moment.
not pulling a Dr. Brant Petrie on my 7-year-old right now. Like,
Yeah.
I was just trying to
I
give
was just
him.
curious what you said.
Yeah, I was just trying to give him an
I mean,
understanding.
you just lied to your son, but that's okay.
That's
fine.
not what I did. I did not lie to my son.
mean, if
I
that's-
told him about Pentecost, and I told him like when all the apostles went out after Pentecost,
Yeah.
and they went out to build Catholic churches.
Yeah, and so the other argument I could see you making is, well, Adam and Eve was, I mean, like, sort of like the oak tree and the acorn, like the Jewish faith is the Catholic Church. The Jews,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Jewish faith became the Catholic Church.
Right.
We're fulfilled Jews. That's
Right.
all we are.
Correct.
And so it's like, well, pardon, it's like, I think properly and technically, crucifixion,
Boom. The spear to the side, the
Right.
lance to the side,
yeah, well,
water flow.
yeah,
gushing
is
forth.
it that moment? I wouldn't nail it down to a moment. Sort of like in the Eucharist, we don't nail it down to what is the exact instant that the bread and wine, or that the bread is
That's
transformed.
something that we can talk about next week when we have Father David Webb on in the canon law.
Sure. Yeah, but we just say it's when he says the words of consecration.
Right.
Okay, so that takes several seconds. So is it at the beginning or the end of the several seconds? Or is it somewhere in the middle? Is it a gradual, you know what I mean?
mhm,
So I would say it's sort of like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's his crucifixion and death.
I was trying to give my son an idea of, like, there were people who had to go start churches.
Right,
And
yeah.
so when did that happen?
Yeah.
Because that was really his question as we were driving by, and all these churches were around. It's like, well, that church didn't start when the Catholic Church did.
Right.
So when did the Catholic Church start? And that's where I went with
Yeah,
it.
depending on the age of the kid, you could just say, well, Jesus did it. Jesus
Right.
started the church.
Right. I got really excited though. I was just
Good
really
question, yeah.
I was really pumped that he asked the question. So, and Elizabeth is doing okay.
She's doing well.
She broke her
Elbow.
elbow. Is it elbow or
Well,
her ulna or
it's her humerus.
her humerus? It was not funny.
No, but it's her elbow.
Man, I meant to actually say that on the episode because I do like to make life moments on the bookmarks on this.
that's when that happened. Yeah.
Right, because that's important to, as we, years and years later.
Have you ever thought about like someday our kids will probably go back and listen to these episodes?
I have thought about that, and then I thought, well, they will probably listen to like one or two and be like, Dad, it's so boring. But he loves Jesus, and that's kind of
No, I think even if it's not till they're adults, I think they will all probably go back
and listen to it.
Like when we die,
right.
if they haven't done it then, they'll probably do it at that point, if you can still find them.
Right. And I have not saved all of them on hard drives or anything.
We'll probably get deleted by Google
So,
by then.
Yeah, they are on our website and on
Yeah.
YouTube, but I have not saved our episodes,
Yeah.
which is something I probably should have done. But yeah,
Meh. All right, let's shut it down.
yep. Thanks, Juan.